May we now rise for the academic session. Deputy Vice Chancellor of Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academic, Registrar, Bossa, University Librarian, Provost of the College of Medicine, Provost of Postgraduate College, Dean of the Faculty of Clinical Sciences, Deans of other faculties and of Director of the Institute of Dental, Heads of Department, then Vice Chancellor of the University, ladies and gentlemen. The 44th in a series of university lectures will be delivered today by Professor Akinyinka of Omigbodun, the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology, the Faculty of Clinical Sciences. Professor Akinyinka of Omigbodun was born in his ancestral home, Osogbo, Osun State. Tuesday, the 26th of May, 1959, the family of Venerable Julius Ladunjoye and Chief Mrs. Regina Olatide Omigbodun, both of blessed memory. He attended All Saints School, Osogbo, Loyola College, Ibadan, and Polytechnic Ibadan. They formed matriculating at the University of Ibadan in September 1976 as a medical student. He obtained MBBS degree with distinction in 1982, winning several prizes, including the Mayor of the Conference. The best candidate in the first professional examination and the other of the traveling fellowship for academic achievement and contribution to community life in the medical school. The fellowship enabled him to undertake an elective rotation at the Kenyatta National Hospital at the University of Nairobi. After housemanship at the University of Hospital, Ibadan, he did the mandatory National Youth Service Program in Kwara State. Worked briefly at the State Hospital of Osogbo before commencing his postgraduate specialist training at the University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital in Ibadan in September of 1982. He transferred to the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology in September 1983 and completed his training by obtaining the fellowship West African College of Surgeons in October 1987, and that of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria in May 1988. He won awards as the best candidate at the Part 1 examinations at both colleges in 1986, where he was the sole successful candidate among the 27 that sat for the Part 1 examination of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria in Obstetrics and Gynaecology. Was at the University Hospital of South Manchester, Whittington, for subspecialty training, gynecology, 1990 to 1991. Was postgraduate research fellow in reproductive biology at the University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, from 1993 to 1997. Joined the services of the University of Ibadan, a demonstrator in the country. 1977, formally started as an academic staff for the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology, March 1988. Was at the same time appointed honorary consultant, obstetrician, and gynecologist to the University College Hospital in Ibadan. Was promoted senior lecturer in 1991 and attained the grade of professor 1st October 1997. Professor Omigbodun has served the university in several positions, including being the head of the department from 1997 to 1999, Hall Master Alexander Brown Hall from the year 2000 to 2006, the chairman of the University Senate Curriculum Committee from 2003 to 2006. He also served on several ad hoc and statutory committees of the College of Medicine before he assumed duties as the 8th provost of the College of Medicine from 1st August 2006 to 31st July 2010. The superintendent over the preparation and approval of the new integrated competency-driven curriculum for the MBBS program in March 2010, the first comparative review of curriculum in more than 3 decades, which ushered in a separate professional examination in psychiatry. All the other curricula in the college also commenced the process of revision during that period. Outside the University of Ibadan, Professor Omigbodun has been a visiting scholar to many universities, including the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, the University of West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, and the University of the Gambia, Ibadan. He has been a professor of reproductive health services, the Pan-African University for Life and Health Sciences Institute, including health and agriculture policy since the year 2013. He has served as external examiner of students or assessors of academics in several universities in Nigeria, Ghana, and the West Indies. He has also been an examiner for the postgraduate specialist trainees at the West African College of Surgeons, the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria, the past 33 years. He has served on the Government Council of the Osun State University and the Board Management of Union Teaching Hospital. He has also served as a member of the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria and of its Medical and Dental Practitioners Disciplinary Tribunal. He was the chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association Oyo State branch 1992 to 1993. Professor Akinyinka Omigbodun served as the pioneer board chairman from 2010 to 2015 of the Consortium of Advanced Research Training in Africa, CATA. He was also the chief coordinator of college courses of the West African College of Surgeons from the year 2000 to 2014. He was the faculty chairman and the chief examiner in Obstetrics and Gynaecology from 2003 to 2007, and served in many other positions before serving as the president of the West African College of Surgeons in 2015 to 2017. He was the chairman of the Regional Council for Health Professionals in the ECOWAS sub-region from the year 2017 to 2020. He was the editor-in-chief of the Tropical Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology from 1999 to 2010, and the proceedings of the Nigerian Academy of Science from 2015 to 2019. He is currently the editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Medicine and Medical Sciences. Professor Omigbodun serves for the editorial advisory boards of several journals, including the Global Health Science and Practice. Professor Akinyinka Omigbodun has been recipient of many coveted international awards, including the Training Fellowship from the International Women's Health Coalition in 1990, the Audrey Mayer Mass Fellowship of the American Cancer Society in 1992, and an award of the American Society of Reproductive Medicine at the 52nd Annual Conference in Boston in the United States in 1996 for its distinct contribution to science. In September 2010, the Osun State Government of Nigeria bestowed the state's Merit Award of Professor Omigbodun for his contribution to the science and practice of medicine. January 2012, he was elected a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science. March 2017, he was elected a fellow of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists of the United Kingdom at Delhi, one of only 10 Nigerians to have been so honored since the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists was established about 75 years ago. Professor Omigbodun was elected a Foundation Fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Medicine in 2020 and of the Academy of Medicine Specialties in Nigeria in 2021. Professor Omigbodun is a member of the Scientific Committee for Global Science Program on urban health and well-being of the International Science Council and the Urban Health Working Group of Inter-Academic Partnership, IAP. He is a member of several other professional and scientific organizations, including the Society of Gynaecology and Obstetrics of Nigeria, the African Organization for Research and Training in Cancer, the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, and the International Society of Urban Health. He has supervised 12 Masters of Science, 5 Doctor of Philosophy dissertations, and is currently supervising 5 other PhD students. He has also supervised 16 fellowship dissertations of the West African College of Surgery, the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. He has published so far more than 200 scholarly articles and books, book chapters. More than 90 of his publications have been cited at least 10 times. He has been a principal investigator or co-investigator in several research projects that have attributed an aggregate of more than $20 billion in research grants to the University of Ibadan. Professor Akinyinka Omigbodun is Ibadan. So Professor Olayinka Omigbodun, Nigeria's first female professor of psychiatry. And the current provost of the College of Medicine. Married is blessed with adult children and grandchild. This family is abundantly blessed with musical talent. Professor Akinyinka Omigbodun plays several musical instruments, and he has composed some musical pieces, including the anthem of the West African College of Surgeons. It is my privilege to invite Professor Akinyinka Omigbodun to present the university lecture, which is titled From Cells to Systems, Building a Vibrant Academy, with the following topics. First, cells, organs, and systems, the cell engaging the system. The second, the system nourishing the cell. Finally, the third, making the system function better. Professor Omigbodun.
Mr. Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, the Provost, College of Medicine, the Provost of the Postgraduate College, Deans of the Faculty of Clinical Sciences, Deans of other faculties and of students, Directors of institutes and centers, Heads of departments, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. The tradition of delivering public lectures at the University of Ibadan goes right back to the foundation of the institution. The first one that I could retrieve from the archives was the lecture by Professor Christopherson of the Foundation Department of English, and it was titled Bilingualism, delivered fittingly in the foundation year of the university as a college of the University of London in 1948. Other lectures were delivered at varying intervals between 1948 and 1970. And the nomenclature of those lectures was clouded by controversy until 1971, when the Senate of the University of Ibadan approved the format for inaugural lectures, as well as the three-part annual University of Ibadan lectures. Later still, the tradition of holding annual convocation lectures was established, although these were generally delivered by people from outside the university, unlike the earlier two that were restricted to professors in the university. Inaugural lectures, which which have now become a cherished university tradition in most of the leading academic institutions worldwide, probably have their origin in the Oxford and Cambridge universities in the 17th and 18th centuries. The lecture is meant to recognize the appointment or promotion of an academic to the rank of full professor, provides an opportunity for the lecturer to highlight the contribution their research has made to the main product of academia, that is new knowledge. It also permits the inaugural lecturer to introduce new ideas to an audience of town and gown, as the cliche level, to solve some of the problems facing society. I was privileged to attend a retreat of the University Council in Aga, Osun State, in 2006, where the present version of the vision of the University of Ibadan was articulated. And that vision addresses the importance of societal relevance by proclaiming that the institution is to be a world-class institution for academic excellence geared towards meeting societal needs. Thus, many of the 550 inaugural lectures delivered by professors of this university over the years have made recommendations on how the knowledge being shared could be used for the benefit of the community, local and global. If this applies to inaugural lectures, it is even more pertinent for the annual university lectures. Oladipo Akinyinka in the 16th university lecture in 1989 drew a distinction between the purpose of inaugural and university lectures. Thus, both inaugural and university lectures are now hallowed by tradition. The one usually a discourse in an area of specialty, often ending with a flourish, simulating an academic thanksgiving. The other treating a broad area of societal concern with a flavor of intellectual social order. I didn't study Latin in school, so I had to go and seek out the meaning of social order. And the literal meaning is to lift something upward with a rope. But the contextual meaning, as in the Eucharistic prayer given that appellation, is to focus on things of the higher realm. In this year's University of Ibadan lecture, I certainly intend to treat an important area of societal concern. But whether we do get to higher realms will be left to your judgment as the audience. Since the Senate of UI approved the delivery of the University of Ibadan lectures in 1971, 43 such lectures have been delivered. The first lecture was delivered in the Silver Jubilee year of the university, 1973. I had a story from one of the professors of that era that when the first lecturer, Professor Emmanuel Anyodele, was appointed, he requested a whole year to permit him to prepare. Now, in hindsight, I think that was a short period to ask for. There were some years when the lecture was not delivered for various reasons. Unlike inaugural lectures, I'm just showing the list of lecturers that have delivered the lecture over the years. Unlike inaugural lectures, every faculty gets at least one slot each year. Only one faculty in rotation gets to nominate a professor to deliver the annual University of Ibadan trilogy of lectures. 7 of the lecturers have been from the Faculty of Medicine and a successor College of Medicine, including 5 from my current faculty, the Faculty of Clinical Sciences. I am delivering the 8th trilogy of lectures from the College of Medicine and the 6th one from the Faculty of Clinical Sciences. This is the first one from the Department of Obstetrics and Gynaecology. I must extend my gratitude to the Dean of my faculty, Professor Theo Omigbodun, for nominating me for this role, which is made all the more special because I never had an opportunity to deliver an inaugural lecture since my promotion to the grade of professor 27 years ago. Being from the largest faculty in the university has its disadvantages. 4 people were promoted to the grade of professor from my faculty in the year of my promotion, including 3 from my department, and the other 2 are seated in this audience. I acknowledge both of you. Eventually, only 2 of the 4 got to deliver inaugural lectures in the subsequent years. I was not one of those 2. The annual university lectures that have been delivered by the College of Medicine have not surprisingly focused on medicine and health. 4 of the lecturers were my teachers in medical school. The first lecture by Lucas in 1975 was about tropical medicine, his forte. The second lecture by Adelola Adeloye, not surprisingly, was about the history of medicine and medical practice. The third lecturer, Akinyinka, wrote a narration exploring the intersection of the work of health and the wealth of educational sectors in Nigeria, and mused that the specialists in the different sectors sang discordant tunes, while the problems facing society in those sectors festered. Sadly, many of the issues he alluded to 35 years ago, such as poor facilities in our health and educational institutions, inadequate budgetary allocations to health and education, student unrest in higher educational institutions, and brain drain loom just as large today as they did back then. The 4th lecture, delivered by Olaoluwa Akinyinka, focused on its core discipline of human nutrition and its role in human development. The 5th lecture by Oladele Kale was a lamentation on the depressing health indices of Nigeria's population, with a life expectancy that stubbornly refused to rise more than 40 years after political independence. It hasn't risen yet, although we are now more than 60 years. He also talked about various other parameters illustrating how bad things were and why they were unlikely to improve unless the decline in our educational sector was arrested and reversed. 10 years later, in the 6th lecture, Michael Asusu looked at health and how this great citadel of learning, UI, could make a difference in our society. The 7th lecture was delivered by a basic scientist, Olatunde Faromi, who was the 43rd university lecturer. He tried to sensitize the audience to the huge potential of translational research in improving the human condition, and why the findings from the medical science laboratories must be made relevant to healthcare delivery. In this 44th lecture, I have chosen to focus on our institution, my alma mater, the University of Ibadan. Unlike most of the previous lecturers from the College of Medicine, I will look at health and education, but my primary focus shall certainly be the latter. I hope to take us on a journey analogous to that of life scientists, who observe cells come together to form tissues, organs, and ultimately systems that give expression to life in the organism. In the metaphorical framework of my narration, the cell is the person. The tissues and organs are units of the university, and the system is the University of Ibadan. The university itself is part of the organism that is Nigeria's higher educational sector. My main focus will be on the system, but will dwell extensively on some individual cells and also make some references to the organism of which the system is a part. Talking briefly about systems, the university, particularly if it is publicly funded, is an open system because it interacts with the external geographical, political, socioeconomic, cultural, and technological environment. The university exists to act as a driver of innovation in society, even as it serves as a custodian of the values and virtues that characterize the community it is situated in. The university receives input in terms of resources from society, transforming this into output in the form of new knowledge and new scholars, shaping outcomes in the community, and having an impact on the quality of human existence in the long term. The strength of the system is in the individual cells and how they come together to form tissues and organs that play their respective role in ensuring the proper functioning of the system within the organism. The beginning of the journey sounds more biographical than is usual in lectures of this nature, but it is to illustrate how cells can be nourished by systems. The cells later returning the favor by adding to the strength of the system and nourishing other cells. Toward the end of the trilogy, we shall explore suggestions on how to make the system even stronger in the face of the diverse forces that are assailing it from multiple directions. Now, a brief reprise of biology. One of the earliest lessons I learned in biology class was that the cell is the basic building block of life, the smallest structural and functional unit for the processes of life. No matter how complex an organism eventually becomes, it is the proper functioning of the individual cells that will give it shape, form, and function. Cells of different types come together to form tissues, which in turn get organized to form organs. Different organs come together to form systems that keep the organism functioning as a whole being. The whole human being as an organism is made up of about a dozen organ systems. These systems work independently and integratively to ensure that the organism remains alive and functional. And that is the end of our biology lesson. The first cell that I will mention as engaging the system is one that I'm familiar with, and I will relate this part of the story in the first person singular. My initial contact with the University of Ibadan system was as a research assistant doing vacation job in May 1974. I had just completed the first year of advanced level studies in mathematics, physics, and chemistry, preparatory to being an engineering student, when I was engaged to gather research data in the Department of Medicine in the University College Hospital by Professor Adenilola Adetuibi. By the time I joined his research team, I was no longer so enthused about being an engineer, and I had written the concessional entrance examination to the University of Ibadan to study medicine. I was one of the 50 that were admitted, with our names being published in the two most prominent national daily newspapers of that era. As I concluded the period of my vacation job in September 1974, I enrolled as a medical student in UR. the cell was gradually engaging with the system. My first year in UI passed very quickly, with some notable events that I remember vividly. The first was a matriculation with Professor Horatio Olusegun beside him. His dignified poise and his excellent diction were awe-inspiring. Other notable activities of the era included the fourth commemoration of the unfortunate death of Adekunle Olumuyiwa Adepeju, for whom the Students' Union building in UI is named. He died 1st February 1971 from bullet wounds fired by the police on UI students demonstrating for better catering in Nnamdi Azikiwe cafeteria. That was the first time I would experience tear gas, which was liberally deployed by the policemen. It wasn't a pleasant experience. The remainder of my student days were characterized by other national events, both reactions by students that ended up altering our academic calendars. Some of those events led to changes in the leadership of the university, and I ended up studying under 3 different vice chancellors, Olusegun Thomas, Peken Akamu, and Olajuwon Olaide. There was one particular event amidst the busy period of my clinical training, when the nation's entire university system was enmeshed in student demonstrations across several campuses. You must remember that at that time we had less than 10 universities in the country. This was the Ali Must Go eruption that led to a second set of student matters in 1978. The root cause, once again, was feeding arrangements for university students. Students' hire was directed at the Minister of Education, Ahmadu Ali, an alumnus of the University of Ibadan Medical School. There were also more memorable events of a more individualized nature, including my participation in the politics of the Medical Students Association, serving as editor-in-chief of the Student Scientific Journal, adjusting to the social life in Alexander Brown Hall, and taking those massive professional examinations in our second year and in our final year. Those experiences revealed different sides of the institutions to my young, impressionable mind. The brilliant and dedicated professors, the dread-evoking teachers that students went to great lengths to avoid coming in contact with on the corridors, the administrators who kept the processes moving alongside the academic staff, and the junior staff toiling in obscurity, but who could tell you all kinds of stories about the activities of the top scholars and administrators they are working with. Which stories were true and which were apocryphal were often difficult to tell apart from each other, but they all contributed to how I viewed the institution. There was one experience that stood out, and it was in my first preclinical year, when we were settling into anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and the other subjects of the first couple of years of medical school. A medically qualified teacher in anatomy, Akintola Otola, came into class one day and asked that any student who was interested in working in his research laboratory should see him after our cadaver session. Having enjoyed working as a research assistant during the 2 previous long vacations, albeit working with clinical records only, this looked like a new adventure that would be worth my while. Immediately after class, I went to his office in the company of one of my classmates who was also interested. He got both of us engaged after classes each day to participate in some of the experiments he was conducting on the nervous system of bats. I was introduced to different laboratory techniques and how to cut tissue sections and stain them. Although it meant spending extra hours that I would have used to read all those fact textbooks that have been recommended to us as clinical medical students, I was enthralled, and I knew I wanted to be a researcher. The cell had found the system suited to him. The next problem was how to engage with it. Time moved quickly in clinical school, and before I knew it, we were in the final year of our training. We had to take exams in 7 clinical subjects. 4 at the beginning of the session and 3 at the end of it. It was brilliant. Many dropped out because they were not good. The results of our final examinations were released on the morning of the day after the examinations were concluded. And the ceremony to admit us into the medical profession took place in the afternoon of the same day. Graduation was in November. The person who admitted me to the medical profession is seated on the front row here, Professor Ruwale. And that's the picture of myself and my late mom at my graduation in 1980. My journey into the practice of medicine began with housemanship, followed by national service. My goal was to get back to an academic career as soon as practicable, but I also wanted to continue to care for patients.
That's Mira, Abby.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk with Mira.
Specialist training in obstetrics and gynaecology. The period of training was tough, but I scaled through the examinations rapidly, and within 5 years was certified as a specialist. I was offered a position on the faculty shortly afterwards. The cell had finally found a place in the system. Things moved rapidly after that as the cell was being integrated into the system. The first was a period of subspecialty training at the University Hospital of South Manchester in the UK that was facilitated by the older cells in the system. Thereafter came a research fellowship in one of the foremost medical schools in the world and the oldest in the United States of America, the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. The system permitted the cell to engage in all these activities in the hope that the enhanced cell would make greater contribution to strengthening the system. That hope was not misplaced. In due course, the cell reached the pinnacle of academy within the system, attaining the grade of professor. Now, the whole purpose of telling this long story is that cells can be nurtured and incorporated into organs within a system. And working with other nurtured cells will ensure the development and functionality of the system. Unless new cells are continually added and nurtured, the system will not be vibrant and will eventually suffer decline and demise. This cell was nurtured and was in turn able to contribute to the nurturing of other cells to strengthen the system. As we come to the end of the first part of this biology, there will be a brief narration of how this cell has made some contribution to the system. Upon my return to Nigeria, after an almost 4-year sojourn as a research scholar at Penn, I assumed duty as the head of my department in 1997. That era was the nadir of morale amongst key players in Nigeria's university system. There had been repeated industrial actions by the university staff, leading to complete cancellations of academic sessions. Remuneration for university staff was low. Cultism was rife on campuses across the country, and the exodus of staff in search of greener pastures that had started in the late 1980s continued unabated. The situation then, in terms of brain drain, bears an eerie similarity to what the nation is currently experiencing. Those who remained behind were fully motivated, and student population was increasing, even as the population of teachers was declining. One of the questions I was most frequently asked on my return was, what did you come back to? This was rather ironic because the question I frequently heard in my final couple of years at Penn was, when are you going back to your country? In my department, the number of academic staff had dropped to less than half of what it was 5 years before, due to a combination of retirement and emigration. Meanwhile, the number of students had nearly doubled to about 280 being postings in OBGYN and pediatrics. This was despite the fact that many of them dropped off at the end of the first professional examination. So as a department, we confronted the challenges. We wanted to improve the learning environment, ensure full participation of students in educational activities, and improve the validity and reliability of the assessment we are doing of the students at the end of their training. Given the large number of students in each group and the few academic staff available, the senior registrars, those near the end of their specialist training in the department, were engaged to assist in the teaching of the students, both in the classroom as well as the bedside. In the past, specialist trainees had always taken part in clinical teaching in the clinics, but this role was expanded under the close supervision of senior academic staff, who initially had to sit in the classrooms during the teaching sessions. It was a steep learning curve for them, but 4 of those specialist trainees are now full professors with several years standing in the department, while others have also attained similar positions in other institutions. With large numbers of students and fewer teachers, keeping students engaged was bound to be challenging. The standard way was to get them to keep a posting booklet and they would sign at the end of various activities. Invariably, many of the students that got admitted into medical school were amongst the smartest in their secondary school cohorts. Those without scruples put their cleverness to nefarious uses, to evading attending the required teaching sessions. Some would disappear for considerable stretches during the posting. I did hear stories of students who had undertaken overseas holiday trips during their rotation. It was little wonder that a substantial number of them failed the professional examination and had to come back to repeat the postings, adding further to the student load that the teachers had to cope with. The situation needed urgent remedy. One of the first measures that the academic staff agreed to implement to address the attitudinal domain amongst the students was a mid-posting test, whose date would be announced just 3 days before it was to take place. The scores in that examination would count towards the assessments in the examination at the end of the posting and for the professional examination. These had 2 immediate consequences. First of all, the students had to study constantly because they knew not when the test would hold. Secondly, there was no predictable stretch of time when a student would sneak away to enjoy a holiday in some exotic location. The effect on student performance was dramatic. They stayed around the hospital more, even if some of them still managed to evade doing the clinical procedures they were expected to do. The scores at the end of posting examinations were better than in the preceding few years, and the proportion of students who were successful at the final professional examination improved steadily in the succeeding couple of years. Due to the large number of students and the few teachers available, conducting the clinical part of the final professional examination had become a huge burden on all stakeholders and institutions. It required inviting several external examiners who had to stay several days at the university to conduct the examination. The assessment of the students was not easy. Some examiners were stricter than others. The expenditure was enormous in an era when funding for the university system had reached a very low point. One solution that seems to fit the problem was the objective structured clinical examination, OSCE. A format of examination in which students' assessment will be conducted in a uniform, standardized, reliable, and objective way. OSCE had been developed more than 20 years earlier at the University of Dundee in Scotland by Adam and his colleagues, and it had been deployed successfully at the University of Lagos College of Medicine about 10 years earlier. It seems the right time had come for its introduction to Ibadan. Having been assured by the provost of the College of Medicine at that time, Professor Temitayo Fukumi, that the extant MBBS examination regulations approved by the Senate for the final professional examination in obstetrics and gynecology for undergraduates at Ibadan for the first time in 1999. It achieved a significant reduction in the cost and duration of the examination, and it met the requirements of standardization and uniformity in the test items candidates were exposed to. Two major drawbacks of the conventional format of examination. Subsequently, other clinical departments in the college adopted this format. Brief remarks about my stay as provost. Being unsuccessful in an earlier attempt 4 years earlier was not a deterrent in my seeking the office of Provost of the College of Medicine in 2006. I assumed duties on 1st August 2006 after my appointment by the Governing Council of the University. My vision in office was clearly articulated to improve academic skills amongst the teaching staff, to improve the skills of the non-teaching staff, to support units in the college, in various international collaborations and activities, and also the issue of curriculum renewal. When I joined the faculty in 1988, one of the earliest activities I was exposed to was a month-long academic skills course led by international faculty. In that program, which was facilitated by a grant awarded to Professor Lade, who is actually in this audience, a number of us who are employed as College of Medicine to study teaching methods, learn key research skills, and gain insights into organization and methods in administration. The two lead facilitators were educators from the United States, and we were joined by others from this university, including the Institute of Education. We were given books on each of these subjects, some of which I still refer to today. It was an empowering experience, which I feel every new faculty in the institution should have. While such short courses could be very useful, the time available was grossly inadequate to master any of the issues involved. If a program covering a longer period could be developed, implemented, and sustained, it would enable succeeding generations of academic staff to excel and make the institution more vibrant. It was this quest that led to the formation of the West African Network for Biomedical Education, with colleagues in the UK, John McDermott from Imperial College, Steve Allen from University of Swansea, and John Caldwell from University of Liverpool, together with colleagues from other universities in Anglophone West Africa. We obtained funding from the European Union, and we embarked on a project to enhance the teaching skills of teachers of the health sciences or health professions in West Africa. The regional network was formed with representation from each of the partner institutions. The local institutions were Ahmadu Bello and Jos in Nigeria, Kwame Nkrumah University in Ghana, the University of Sierra Leone, and the University of Gambia. Drafting the curriculum for a Master of Science in Biomedical Education to be awarded by the University of Ibadan was eventually completed. The journey to getting that approved by the Senate was a tortuous one. The course was designed to be delivered by a distance learning platform so that the teachers could continue to render services in their various institutions and countries of residence while being enrolled as students for the degree. The taught elements of the course were to be delivered from Ibadan over 3 semesters in 3 distance learning modules. The 4th semester was designed to be taken up by a teaching project to be undertaken and supervised at the student's host institution. The only period to be spent at Ibadan was the week of project defense at the end of the course. So many objections were raised from different quarters because of the novelty of the idea. Eventually, after a couple of re-presentations of the proposal, it was approved by the University of Ibadan Senate on 27th April 2009. The first set of 18 students drawn from 6 West African partner completed their studies on 14th July 2011 by defending their projects, and they were awarded the degrees. All the pioneer students have found that the course had improved their ability to teach their students, whilst also sharpening their research skills. All of the graduates believed that the pedagogical skills they had acquired in the course of taking the modules would make them more effective as teachers. And this view was common to the different professions represented: medicine, dentistry, nursing, physiotherapy, and public health. There were some communication difficulties in terms of gaining access to the distance learning materials, but these were temporary. The biggest constraint was the bureaucracy of the then postgraduate school of university, which became so difficult to navigate that the program had to be suspended after the graduation of the second set of students. In an attempt to resuscitate the program, the curriculum was substantially revised, and the new curriculum has been approved by the Senate, and new learning materials are being prepared because technology has changed. Technology is going to make life easier, but then the material must be made fit for the new technology. The postgraduate college has introduced some measures to make it easier for students to register for courses and complete them remotely. Hopefully, this will be back in class soon. The most important lesson learned is that it is possible to train the trainers of health professionals for an extended time while retaining them at their duty posts, continuing to render services there. Undoubtedly, the academic skills of university teachers or students of the various health professions and other disciplines will be significantly enhanced through this kind of part-time learning programs, which, if widely adopted, will enhance the quality of the learning experience of students in UI and other educational institutions. I'll now talk about sustainable international collaborations. In November 2007, while attending a scientific conference in Ibadan, South Africa, I ran into an Ibadan alumnus, Alex Eze, whose time when he was obtaining a doctorate from Penn overlapped with my stay there. He had now become the pioneer director of a research think tank based in Nairobi, Kenya, the African Population and Health Research Center, or APHRC. As we exchanged pleasantries and caught up with what each of us had been doing since we left Penn, we began to discuss the issue of postgraduate training in African universities and the numerous obstacles to building a critical mass of researchers doing high-quality research that addresses the needs of the continent. We both agree that the key prerequisites for the success of research in Africa are strengthening the research infrastructure, training researchers according to global best practices, and having a supportive network of research administrators. We also agree that individual institutions may not have the resources to tackle the problem of building research capacity on their own. But if resources were pooled together in collaboration with each other, the chances of success will be higher. A few weeks later, in January 2008, APHRC convened a meeting in Dar es Salaam to discuss how such a collaboration could be started between African universities and research institutes. The partners eventually formed what became known as the Consortium for Advanced Research Training in Africa, CATA, in 2009, with initial funding from the Wellcome Trust. CATA was formally inaugurated in Nairobi in May 2010, with the director being Alex Eze from APHRC, Sharon Fon, a professor at the University of the Witwatersrand, was deputy director, and today's lecturer was I'm not sure whether you can see, but there were 9 universities from Africa, 4 research institutes, and then several other universities and research institutes from outside Africa. Right from the onset, it was agreed that strong institutional buy-in was essential to the sustainability of the collaboration. The vice chancellors or principals or directors of partner institutions were expected to approve Qatar activities in their institutions and the participation of personnel from their institutions in Qatar activities. The vice chancellors and directors were also expected to meet annually to review progress towards achieving the aims of the consortium. The vice chancellors even co-authored a major publication together in the Lancet in 2018 about repositioning African institutions in global knowledge production. Successive vice chancellors of UI since the inception of Qatar, Professors Olufemi Bamiro, Isaac Adewale, Idowu Olayinka, and Kayode Adebowale have all been very supportive of Qatar. The University of Ibadan is almost certainly the biggest beneficiary of Qatar amongst African partner universities. The university has received the largest number of doctoral fellowships among all partners. A significant number of postdoctoral awards and various infrastructural interventions, such as the postgraduate hostel block on the University College Hospital campus, the Qatar postgraduate seminar room in the Oladile Adjusted building, the library and reading room in the Faculty of the Social Sciences, and a new electricity transformer for the Battery Medical Library. The Qatar partnership has been sustained for nearly 15 years now, and UI certainly needs many more of such sustainable collaborations to maintain relevance and be at the forefront of knowledge production and dissemination in Nigeria and globally. One key attribute of successful organizations is the enshrining of mentorship in institutional culture. I was one of the co-investigators on one of the largest single grants the University of Ibadan has ever received, a grant from the United States National Institutes of Health through the John E. Fogarty International Center for the Medical Education Partnership Initiative in Nigeria, MEPI, led by Professors David Olaleye and Isaac Adewale. The funding was to revamp medical education at UI and 5 other university medical schools in Nigeria. One key element of that intervention that I was very happy to lead was undergraduate mentored research for medical and dental students at UI. It brought back memories of my own introduction to medical research as an undergraduate in this same university. Clinical students who had excelled in the first professional examination were invited to apply to participate as mentored researchers. They were made aware of the extra demands this was going to place on their time. And the students attended 2 workshops, one on mentoring and the other on preparing research proposals. Senior academic mentors were also present at those workshops. The original intention was to select the best 50 to 60% of the proposals for funding. Parents selected students with one of their choices for senior academic mentor. The output of the workshop was astounding. The students and the mentors were so enthusiastic that more than 90% of the proposals ended up being sponsored. Many senior faculty in the college accepted to mentor these students through the various research projects they chose to undertake. Some of the mentors provided additional funds from their own research grants if the cost of doing the research project exceeded the ceiling placed on the funding being made available to each student. Nearly all of the projects selected were completed by the students. and more than 3/4 were published in a peer-reviewed journal. I took on 2 of the students to be mentored, and the 2 students I mentored both published their research findings. Remarkably, none of the researchers had to resist any of the subjects in their clinical examinations. Not surprisingly, 2 of the students were valedictorians in their sets. It goes to show that we need to overcome the cruelty of low expectations and challenge undergraduate students to be active participants in producing new knowledge from institutions. The outcome will be amazing, and it's a win-win for all. On the less salutary note, virtually all the students that participated in the program are now in institutions outside Nigeria, and it is uncertain how many of them will return. Mr. Vice Chancellor, these examples of exercising leadership in nourishing what will be described as the stem cells that in the undergraduates, empowering the mature cells, teachers, through appropriate training, involvement in sustainable international collaborations, promoting mentorship of the next generation, are all attributes of a cell determined to fully engage with the system and make a positive difference. The system has certainly been made better by these contributions, and the cell has found fulfillment in being a part of the system. Next week, in the second part of this trilogy, we will explore how the system can nourish cells so that the cells would in turn make the system stronger and better. Please join us for that next part of our journey, and I thank you for your audience.
Play next anthem.